So a couple of times I've seen people ask how you align your tailstock with your headstock, and the answer, the cheapest way, perhaps not the quickest way, is to do it like this. It's to get a piece of free turning material that you know is going to turn to a pretty good size and leave a fairly smooth finish in the chuck. Just face it off and then turn it down to the exact same dimension as your tailstock barrel. So this piece of aluminium here is within half a thou of the same size, well within half a thousandth, and that's 1.25 inches, and this is also 1.25 inches, give or take 2/10 either way, I suppose. So you turn your piece of stock down to the same size as the tailstock barrel. Due to the small size of this lathe, you've got to have the tailstock barrel wound out quite a way to unless you stick a piece of stock right out of the chuck. And also, I don't want to be on the gap bed piece because there is a very, very slight deviation in the measurement. As this bridges the gap bed, I've got it all bedded down, and there's still, you know, 0 point something, fuck all really, of deviation, and you can barely measure it on a part. So it is what it is. Unless you scraped it all in, it like the base of the gap bed piece, it's not going to change. So you take your dial indicator and mount it onto the cross slide or the compound, and you could do this with a tool holder, either way really. And we're on the aluminium part at the minute, so if we wind up and down that, we can see we're more or less at 0. This is a 0.01 indicator, so we're pretty much at 0 all the way across there. And then you just come onto your tailstock barrel, and you can see we're at about +1. So that is within 0.01, more or less. You know, that's just under there. So well within 1,000th. If you said it was 0.02, that's less than a thou. So we're well within 1,000th of an inch between that and that. The other problem is though that your tailstock barrel could be worn. And this one does have some wear marks, that's just oil, but you can see there is some wear to it. This is an old lathe. So you can do the same, but put a centre or something that's parallel in the actual tailstock, like a Morse taper, test bar, or some sort of parallel shank tool that's ground and you know is dead straight. Turn this down to the size of the tool in the tailstock and do the same test. But that's just a quick way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to mount your indicator holder or stand to the face of a chuck. This is a bit small, better to use a 4-jaw. Mount that to that, put the clock on the barrel, and then rotate it round until you get these two measurements equal. Bring it back now. So on this lathe, you put an Allen key, or I've got these long T-bar Imperial hex keys, and there's a bolt either side, and you basically pull or push the tailstock and then lock the two bolts off against each other. You have to be quite careful because as you tighten these up, even when you tighten them against each other, it still has a tendency to move the tailstock barrel. But you can see now we're more or less on 0 there, and as we come across onto the other one, we're at 0. So we was 0.2 out, say 0.02 of a millimetre out, which is just under a thou, and now we're nothing out. So that's as close as you're going to get an old lathe like this, and that's the job done. But that's the easiest way to do it. You can buy obviously a test bar that goes between centres. That works pretty nice, but they're about 50 quid. And you can also just use any old piece of ground rod, as long as it's been ground and the centres are pretty good in each end, then you can use that.